Hi, hi, hi. Welcome back. So, yeah, if you're here because there is not a podcast episode up on the regular streaming platforms, yeah, I didn't realize that it takes like 7 days to transfer your podcast to a different host. So I'm currently in the middle of that. So I apologize that there's not an episode up on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, and that you have to come to YouTube. But it's not bad for my YouTube. Anyways, hopefully that gets fixed so I can get those episodes up because there are episodes you can see on the YouTube channel that they are there. Okay, today's book is brand new. Like, I bought it yesterday. I think it came out Monday, maybe Saturday. It came out like, within the week. And it is The Apprentice to the Villain by Nicole Maehrer. And I did an episode on The Assistant to the Villain, which is on Spotify, actual podcast episode. And so loved it so much. Loved it so much. It's so funny. I love the characters. I love the plot. The only thing, literally the only thing that I had a problem with is that there was like very minimum spice. Like at all. Like I don't think they even kissed. Like they thought about kissing in the first book, but there was like nothing. And that stresses me out because I have a minimum. And this one, they do kiss, but that's it. That's it. That's it. Like the sexual tension is there in both of them. But again, I just was really sad because I need spice. I just need it. Even if it's like a fade to black, I just want them to make out. I mean, they kind of make out in this one, but nothing else. Like he puts her on a desk and you think that it's going to go farther and you're like, "Oh my gosh, absolutely. Like this is what I'm here for." And then they get interrupted and then there's nothing. And that made me very sad. But this book is equally as funny. It's equally as good. The plot, the stories, I just absolutely loved it. These two books are ones that I could recommend to anyone. Like I could see I have a 12-year-old niece. I think when she is like maybe 14 or 15, she could read these books because they're so funny, they're good, they're clean, they're just the world building is perfect. Like the author she leads you along, but it's not like annoying or frustrating like the lead along. And one of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if it did this in the first book, but in this book, I noticed that almost every chapter is like a cliffhanger. That there's just like a truth bomb, like at the end of every chapter. So you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen on this one? And then you go to the next chapter and you're like, thank goodness this next chapter is here because I would have been mad if it stopped. And it's interesting because sometimes books, what I've noticed is that when there are multiple books in a series, that the story is kind of like, even if it ends on a cliffhanger, the story is kind of like wrapped a little bit, and then something at the very end is like introduced. That's what I've noticed with a lot of books. With these ones though, it's as if she wrote this very, very, very long book and then just cut portions out of it to make it into the next book. Like this picks up right where the first one ended, and it literally seems like it stops mid-story and like at the very end, of course, it's a cliffhanger. And I don't know if I'm frustrated by it. Well, okay, I am frustrated because when is the next book coming out? But I kind of like it because it's just such a seamless like transition into the next book, and it just worked really, really well that I wasn't mad at it. And so I am going again to Idaho in a couple weeks. And I am going to take these books and have my mom and sister read them because they're just so good. I love a funny book. You know this. I've mentioned this in the Christina Lauren book, or in the Christine Lauren, whatever, the Unhoneymooners, in Actually, I haven't done an episode on Abby Jimenez. I read Yours Truly by her, and I'm going to do an episode on it. But that one was so funny. And, well, it wasn't so funny, but it was funny. And so I'm a sucker for funny. And this, I was just looking forward to it. And that's why I read it so fast, because it was just so good. And like within 60 pages of this book of Apprentice to the Villain, you know what they are going for. You know their goal. Like you know what they're working towards. And of course things come along the way, and there are actually like a lot of twists, a lot of characters introduced. One thing I didn't know about. At first, I was kind of like, "Ugh, what?" But there's multiple points of view in this book. Like there's of course Evie. She's the main female character. There's Tristan, who's the villain. He's the main male character. There is Becky, who's the HR person, and it's like her point of view too. And then there is the knight, which we find out who the knight is. We get like one chapter with him, and then it says like the knight, and then you find out who he is, and then he has a couple chapters throughout the book as well. I think those are the only points of view. But yeah, I wasn't good with it at first, because I was like, no, like I just want to know Evie and Tristan's. Like that's all I want to know. But as it got through the story, I started to love these other two characters, that I was like, okay, this is fine, because at one point the villain and Evie were off doing this quest, and then Becky is still at the manor. And so you're learning things about the manor, because the magic is failing in the land. And so the manor, it has all these different wards around it, and they're starting to fail. And so the guards from like the king, he's evil, they are starting to, I mean, they're always searching for the villain in the manor, but like you're able to see like a window, like a random window in the forest, and then a random door, and like these random things. So they're, the whole quest of the book or whole goal is to save the magic, and how they go about it. There was a couple of scenes that I was like, oh, I feel like that's kind of reaching with like the magic world. I don't know how to describe it without like telling you, but they go into this cave, and they're like basically transferred to a different world, and it's like they meet one of the gods or whatever. So I thought that was kind of random. It like is tied in with a lot of the story though. But it was just kind of a interesting thing to throw in there. Where we leave off is Tristan gets taken by the guards of the king, and so he gets imprisoned. And first off, they're like, Evie's dead. Evie's dead. Like the king tells him that. He's so upset. Even she's on this like casket, like she's dead. And I was like, no, there's got to be twists. There's got to be twists. You just know that there is. And so how that comes about and how they escape is super cool. Like it's just fun and kind of silly. And the king is like, I'm trying to save this magic, but we find out. And so they're like, oh, we want to help this prophecy, because there's a prophecy that goes along with it. So they're like, oh, we do want to fulfill this prophecy. But then they find out the king wants all the magic to himself. And so they're trying to stop that. And there's just a lot of fun bumps and like diversions. And it just is really fun. Like, I just was smiling throughout the whole thing. Like, I was reading it on the couch last night, and I would turn to the husband and I'd be like, I love this book. Like, this is so cool. Like, this is so funny. This is so, like, I would just, like, every couple chapters be like, I love this. Like, this is so, like, it just makes me happy. It kind of reminded me, like, not the story, but like the characters. So I would say that Evie is very much like a golden retriever female character. And you don't get that very often. But it's so perfect for her. She's so kind. She's so sweet. Like, I just picture her as this adorable woman that just is, she just can like tame anyone. She can just like calm anyone down, just like this angel. And he's of course like the broody villain, dark, like, um, he wants to protect her. Like, he has no feelings for anyone, doesn't care about anyone, but then she kind of like sneaks into his heart. And so that kind of vibe reminded me that I am listening to the third book now. But the first one is called Thrown in the Dark by A.K. Caggiano. And I heard about her from TikTok. I didn't really know anything. I'd never heard of her, never heard of the books. They just said that the audio was really good. And so I listened to the first book. There was like no spice, but it was kind of like, it was fantasy, it was world building. He's like a warlock, or a blood mage, and then she is like a golden retriever girl that is just so funny, so sweet, so innocent. And he has the same vibe as Tristan. And so they kind of get paired together because she absorbs like this thing that he needed for his dad. And then they go through this whole adventure. And I'm now on the third book, and there's still like no spice, which has been frustrating. And so I stopped after listening to the first book, and I was like, no, I'm not going to continue. Like, it was fun, but I need spice. And then I just kept thinking about the story. And so then a week later, I was like, fine, I'll just download the second one. Maybe there'll be some spice. And then I listened to it all. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to listen to the third one. There was still no spice. The story was fun still. The characters were really fun. But I was like, no, I have to have some spice. And then it's been a couple weeks now, and I still keep thinking of these characters and the story. And the audio is so good. Like, they got the best, or she got the best readers. Like, they are so good and entertaining that now I just downloaded the third book and I've started on it now because I can't stop thinking about it. And so I hope that there's some spice in this third book, but if there's not, it's okay because the story's really good. The characters are great. The plot, just everything is so good that I'm like, okay, like I can push away like not having very much spice or not having spice at all, but that is one thing that is so important to me. Like, I have to have something. And for me to read these types of books that I'm like, who am I? Do I have to have spice? I guess I don't have to if it's a really good story. Maybe that's why I'm starting to. I've only listened to like mysteries and thrillers. I haven't read them. So I don't know. Maybe I'm growing. Am I growing up? Maybe. So yeah, it would just highly recommend this series. I really do. And if you go to Target, that's where I got these. Apprentice to the Villain is 20% off. So it's great. And then I also picked up, which I didn't bring in the room with me, I picked up the last book of Jennifer Armentrout, The Born of Blood and Ash. It's the fourth book in the Sarah and Nikto series. That was just released yesterday. And I also got it from Target, and it was 30% off. So I don't know if it's just happening this week. I don't know if it's for a while, but if you want to go get the hardcovers, go to Target because you're able to get percentages off. I'm not super excited to read it, but I'm going to because I got to finish the whole series. Like, I'm going to do an episode on it. And also, Kat is going to start listening to it too because she's read all the series, like all the Blood and Ash series, all the Sarah and Nikto series. Like, she is caught up with me. And so I think I'm going to tell her, like, hey, you don't have a choice. Like, you're going to do the podcast episode with me. So that will be really fun to have her and have her, like, opinions and have her, like, side of what she thinks about the whole thing because she is so funny. Like, she's so animated. She gets so into like the characters and story that it's just fun to listen to her. And so I think I'm going to make her do that, which is really fun. I don't know when it's going to be. Probably not for like a month, maybe 2 months. I don't know, but that's definitely coming up. So it's definitely a series that I see people listen to on my podcast because they don't want to read these books or want to continue. So that's been fun to see. That people are like, yeah, I just didn't want to read it, so I listened. I'm like, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Yeah, so let's see. I think that's pretty much it. I have, of course, the longest TBR, so I don't know what the schedule is going to look like. All I really care about right now is getting the podcast episodes up, like on the streaming platforms. Like, I just need that to work so everything can kind of settle down again. Like, that's all I need. So, anyways, thanks for tuning in, and I hope that you pick these books up, and I'll see you next week.